What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Michael and welcome to Fudge Muppet. Today we're going to be taking a trip to the most arcane joinable guild in Skyrim, the College of Winterhold. The College of Winterhold is the default faction you join in almost any mage playthrough, if not simply because it gives you access to vendors who sell lots of good spells and offer some of the highest tier training. By no means do you have to join the guild, but I at least found in my mage playthroughs it pretty much always happens. It's a resourceful guild to be a part of, but what about the main purpose of the faction being in the game anyway? You know, to provide an awesome guild for magic users to join and complete quests for, to develop your spellcasting talents, earning the respect of others, and uncovering power until you become the Archmage yourself. It all sounds very exciting, and by no means do I think the College of Winterhold in Skyrim was awful, but I would say that in some ways it was disappointing. I can remember in 2011 when Scott and I actually got our pre-orders a day early. I finished the College of Winterhold storyline the next day on November the 11th, the official release. Now, it's usually when you first finish a storyline that you're the most blindly impressed. I walked over to Scott and kind of told him it was cool and I like it, but I didn't vibe it as much as the Mages Guild in Oblivion. In this video, I'd like to have a discussion with you guys about how it could have been a lot better, quite easily too. So with that said, let's first take a look at the setup of the College of Winterhold and then go through the details. And of course, spoilers alert, and a warning in advance that I do rip on the College of Winterhold storyline a lot in this video, but I obviously still do enjoy playing it, and as you know, love Skyrim to bits. So the College of Winterhold is situated in the city of Winterhold, and is basically the only institution based in Skyrim that is dedicated to the study of magic. Aspiring mages aren't exactly spoiled for choice. It is said to be created by Archmage Shalador himself, existing for thousands of years prior to the events of Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Legend has it that Shalador even built the city of Winterhold itself with a whispered spell. Winterhold was actually the capital of Skyrim long ago, although it has become a lot less inhabited and far less desirable than ever before. This is mainly due to an event known as the Great Collapse, in which a freak disaster saw most of the city fall into the Sea of Ghosts. Winterhold resides on a cliff overlooking the sea, and after this cataclysmic event involving a series of never-ending damaging storms, not many buildings remained. No one knows for sure what caused the freaky natural events that triggered the collapse, although many Nords who are already very distrustful of mages blame the College of Winterhold. The fact that the college miraculously did not fall into the sea makes things even more suspicious. Because of the Great Collapse, the mages are less trusted than ever, although the college claims they had absolutely nothing to do with it. Perhaps it was an experiment gone wrong, or perhaps, as some in the college claim, it was due to an earthquake that occurred in Vivec and the eruption of Red Mountain that happened after. Then again, the Great Collapse occurred in the 122nd year of the Fourth Era, over 100 years after the eruption of Red Mountain. It doesn't really add up, and considering that the Archmage is a Dunmer, and that Dunmer mages tend to find refuge in the college, it makes the racial tensions between Nords and Dark Elves even worse. Winterhold has become a very sad place, and you can find the residents drinking away their grief in the Frozen Hearth Inn. But you would think that after such a long time since the Great Collapse, people wouldn't really think about it all day and would have rebuilt quite a lot. But anyways, we're here to talk about the college, not the town. After the collapse, the fortress-like college is more isolated than ever before, and it's perched on a big rock that's shaped sort of like an ice cream cone. A long stone bridge that must be incredibly sturdy connects the college to Winterhold, and parts of this bridge have crumbled, falling into the sea below when the Great Collapse happened. To be honest, I would have preferred it if Bethesda fleshed out Winterhold greatly and ditched the whole Great Collapse thing altogether, but I guess it's not the worst setup. Surely the guild really redeems the rest of the city. I mean, it all looks very mystical and arcane, so let's go visit this amazing place and see what we can find. Now, before we can travel across the bridge, we come across a woman named Feralda outside, and Feralda won't let us in unless we can demonstrate our skills as a mage. She'll ask us to cast a spell, or if we're forced to come here as a dragonborn, she will ask to see a shout. Either way, you must complete this or use 100 in the speech skill to convince her to let you in. She'll direct you across the bridge and give you access to the college. You're directed to a lady named Mirabelle, who happily gives you a pair of robes to wear so you can begin your tour of the facilities and your apprenticeship. She shows you around and specifically shows you to the Hall of Attainment, which is your new quarters as an apprentice. This encapsulates the first letdown I had with the College of Winterhold, which becomes a lot clearer when you go to the lecture hall. You see, while this is the College of Winterhold, there's actually only 3 students in the whole academy, not including yourself. Then there's the other quarters called the Hall of Countenance, and this is for the senior faculty members, you know, teachers, scholars, and vendors who specialize in a respective magic school or skill. The layout of these quarters is basically exactly exactly the same as well. There's Ferauda, the Destruction Master, Drevis, the Illusion Master, Finis Gestor, the Conjuration Expert, Colette Marantz, the Restoration-obsessed expert, and Sergius Turianus, the guy in charge of enchanting. These instructors aren't particularly interesting, but they're not the worst characters as far as Skyrim goes. My main problem with this whole thing is that there's only 3 students, plus you, in the whole damn college, and a whole load of instructors, literally twice as many instructors as students before you walk in there. I don't know about you, but this is one weird college. Now, I know it's not meant to be some thriving Hogwarts kind of faction, but surely there would be more students than teachers, and just more students in general. I mean, luckily there was just one spare bed remaining for you, but what if another capable student comes along? Is he meant to sleep on the floor? Now, I can imagine that Bethesda just decided to focus on making the students that were there more memorable, like Brelna, the aspiring Dunmer mage with a Telvanni family, Onmund, who has been interested in magic since he was a child, and of course Jazago, the competitive and smug Khajiit who is always seeking new information to learn. These student characters were solid, but I think everyone would have preferred if there were way more people studying here. Even if Bethesda didn't want to spend time creating lots of in-depth characters because they wanted to focus on a select few, I wouldn't even mind if they had just added in a bunch of robed individuals of various races, simply named Student. They could be seen going around the college, reading and practicing spellcasting, and generally making the College of Winterhold feel like the place it's meant to be, the center of arcane learning in Skyrim. Now, I know that Skyrim isn't exactly filled with aspiring mages, but there's certainly more than 3 capable people who would seek out the location and join the faction, becoming students. Even if you couldn't have conversations with these random student NPCs, it would still be cool. It would also make the instructors seem more valuable, as they would be scarcer by proportion. Perhaps we could actually see the instructors giving these students lessons instead of sleeping and eating bread all day. A lot of these instructors aren't even masters too. Even though you can do the ritual master quests with them, plenty are just expert trainers. Anyways, there's more members at the College of Winterhold who you meet soon enough. We've already met Mirabelle, who is a master wizard. There's Urag Groshub, the college librarian, and Nerya, who is another Outma scholar, although she doesn't offer you any training. There's also a Breton conjurer named Arniel Gain, who is a scholar and spends tons of his time researching things unrelated to spellcasting. For example, he has a keen interest in Dwemer secrets. So including the Archmage and Carno and a few others, there's like 13 members and 3 students. Some of these members are done well and others are very boring and lack any depth, but regardless of this, it just accentuates the lack of students even more. So in summary, we could have added more NPC students doing various activities around the college, larger accommodation for all of them, and fleshed out the tutors, making them feel like masters of their crafts, instead of meeting the Illusion Master and having him not sure if he's still invisible or not. And speaking of mastery, another annoying thing about the college was that the master spells you obtained by doing these ritual quests weren't even as good as just dual casting expert spells, and the quests themselves were weak sauce. For example, the Restoration quest has you visit the Augur of Dunlane, which we'll talk about later, and you're just stripped of your gear and attacked by ghosts. You just have to survive a time period by using restoration magic and you finish the quest. You now have restoration master spells, and you can also just use shouts like Become Ethereal to survive. Imagine instead of just standing in a room being attacked by ghosts and calling it a quest, you actually have to survive some sort of gauntlet, for example. So it works on the same concept of taking your gear and testing your restoration skill, but it would just be way crazier, involving traps, fall damage that is calculated to hurt you but not kill you instantly, and even undead attacking you. This would also force you to whip out those turn undead spells to really show off your restoration prowess. Maybe in this gauntlet, you and another mage are each paired up with a warrior and you have to fight each other. So you have you and an armored warrior on a team versus another mage and a warrior. Then whoever had the best restoration talents when it came to healing their warrior and keeping them alive would win. This is just me spitballing random thoughts, but you can see how these master quests really could have been more developed. The illusion quest is just as simplistic and boring. You're taught a novice spell to go locate 4 books around the college, go collect them, and there you go. How about instead of this, you're sent to investigate a town that has a massive illusion spell aura placed over it. People in the town are having huge mood swings as a result. Sometimes civilians will break out into frenzied combat, and other times the guards will be so relaxed they can't be bothered to fight crime. You go there to discover the source of the illusion magic, and after using your talents to investigate, you track down a mastermind mage, the source of the problem. You defeat him in battle by using illusion spells to turn his allies against him, and then you can loot a powerful tome of his corpse, a book that explains how his illusion magic is so strong and detailing the master spells you then learn. Expansive quests like this would have been much more appreciated. Like I said, it wasn't too good that a lot of the master spells you got were then too time consuming to cast and not as effective as dual casted expert spells. The illusion master spells are a prime example. While we're on the topic of spells, the lack of spells available in general also didn't impress me too much, especially in the conjuration tree. You see, Oblivion was my first Elder Scrolls game, and I actually played as a conjurer in my first playthrough. I loved having a huge list of things I could summon, instead of just 3 elemental atronachs and a small few extras, although obviously the addition of necromancy was pretty cool. This isn't exactly a fault of the college itself, but why not have exclusive new spells inside that expanded the lists of spells you could get? Why not give us the ability to summon scamps, clanfears, hungers, daedroths, and spider daedra? Why not give us the ability to absorb enemy skills using a spell, or the option to cast a reflect spell on ourselves, damaging enemy mages who try to hurt us? I think when it comes to spell variety, more is actually better. But anyways, let's get into the storyline. So you've gone to the college, they accept you into their incredibly small student numbers after you show them you can cast a spell, and then you go and listen to Tolfdir do a lecture on wards. The other students beg him to teach them something more exciting, which is very cliche to be honest, but nonetheless he persists with his lesson on wards. He asks you to cast a ward, you do, and he casts a fireball at it. You block a spell and the lesson is over. Well, now that you've learned how to block a spell, it makes complete sense to send a complete rookie deep into an ancient Nordic ruin. You know, the place that most scholars like Tolfdir know are filled with dangerous threats like Draga. Tolfdir will even mention how dangerous it is, although at least he travels with you and the rest of the students, and in theory could keep you safe. Sadly, wards don't block the edge of ancient Nordic swords, though. Sarthal is one of the most ancient Nordic settlements in Skyrim. Well, it was a settlement, but not so much anymore. Sarthal was sacked by snow elves in an event known as the Night of Tears. That said, not much is known of the place, and the College of Winterhold believe it to be a good place to study the magic used here long ago. There's magical seals placed on the tombs, which they're quite intrigued by. Each student's given a task and has an opinion on the place, and you're told to gather some nearby artifacts for Arniel Gain, one of the scholars working in there. He's not too happy to see you and gives you a fetch objective. You go find some enchanted rings and an ancient amulet. There's no enemies either, so it's been pretty boring so far. That said, when you pick up the amulet, a spear trap activates behind you, locking you into a small space. Now things are getting interesting. You then equip the amulet, which lets you see some resonance coming from the wall, and you shoot a spell at it, which makes it collapse. The trap is also lowered, and Tolfdir comes running on over. You walk through the now accessible part of the ruin, and a ghostly apparition of a member of the Sigic Order appears. He spouts some mysterious predictions to you, saying, "Know that you have set in motion a chain of events that cannot be stopped. Judgment has not been passed, as you had no way of knowing. Judgment will be passed on your actions to come and how you deal with the dangers ahead of you. This warning is passed to you because the Sigic Order believes in you. You, mage, and you alone have the potential to prevent disaster. Take great care and know that the Order is watching." Tolfdir saw nothing of the ghost, but when you tell him, he tells you it's odd and that you should take it as a compliment because the Sigic Order only deals with those they consider worthy. You, a complete magical novice, has been considered worthy. Now, it could just be because you're the Dragonborn, but then why wouldn't you be addressed as such? I find this a bit weird because, for those who don't know, the Sigic Order possess some of the most overpowered mages ever and could easily deal with any threat you're faced with. Weirdly, it almost seems like a test, as they say judgment will be passed based on your actions to come. Perhaps they'll actually let us join their order and we'll end up going on crazy adventures with them. Sadly, not the case. Anyways, you continue through the ruin and fight Draga with Tolfdir, which again I think is really weird because he's only taught you to cast a ward spell and is now happily fighting hordes of undead with you, risking your life. Maybe this is why there's hardly any students, the other ones are all dead. Eventually you come into a large room with a huge spinning orb in the middle, and it looks super arcane. Unfortunately, there's a highly powerful Draga here drawing energy from it, and it's up to you to defeat him while Tolfdir severs this enemy's energy source. After you kill this opponent, Tolfdir can study the orb more closely. You're told to go back and report to Archmage Aaron and say you found something magical in nature like nothing they've ever seen before. Aaron first says, "Please don't tell me that another one of the apprentices has been incinerated. I have enough to deal with right now." What kind of college is this for the students? And you thought college loans were bad. Anyways, Aaron just tells you to visit the librarian for possible leads involving the artifact, which gives you the next quest. This quest involves retrieving 3 books. And on your way out to find them, the Thalmor advisor, Ancano, who is just so heavily foreshadowed to be the bad guy, asks you to tell him what you saw. After this, you continue on your way. Now, it just so happens that the exact 3 books you need in order to research the orb, which was only just discovered, were very surprisingly recently borrowed by a runaway apprentice named Orthorn. This is the biggest coincidence of all time, and I'll suggest an easy alternative soon. Anyways, you go track this guy down, who has apparently joined a rogue group of mages in Felglow Keep. You fight your way through hostile mages until you meet Orthorn, and it turns out he was actually imprisoned in a cage as a test subject. You can free him, and he's obviously grateful and will fight alongside you. Make your way up the tower and battle the leader, taking the 3 books from her. You can actually trade her Orthorn for the books to avoid conflict if you want to. Anyways, it's not the most impressive quest, but it's still fun seeing as Felglow Keep was full of mage experiments, and the leader known as the Caller was intimidating too. But I definitely think that instead of doing the whole, oh wow, a student just happened to take those exact 3 books related to the thing we only just discovered thing, you could have just been told that you need to find a collection of powerful ancient texts buried deep in ancient Nordic ruins. This could then lead you to some beast locations which explore the historic relationships between the Nords and the Snow Elves back in ancient times. So you take the books back, and in the meantime, Tolfdir has magically and discreetly moved this giant orb from Sarthal to the College of Winterhold. Excellent work. Tolfdir has been studying it. It is the Eye of Magnus, an ancient artifact of great mystery and power. The writing on it isn't Aelid, Daedric, or Elven. Ancano, the Thalmor elf, who seems very suspicious, tells us that we have an unexpected visitor in the Archmage quarters who wants to speak, so we go and meet another member of the Sigic Order, Quarrenir. He freezes time to speak to you, and you can only hear him. He basically says that we must stop someone from abusing the Eye of Magnus, and tells us to seek out the Augur of Dunlane. We ask Tolfdir about it, and we're directed to what is essentially a sentient aura in the basement, called the Midden. The Midden is a cool enough place, although again I wish more happened with it. It had loads of potential. It's basically a dungeon underneath the college that contains stuff like the Atronach Forge, and also this Augur of Dunlane being. The Augur is actually a former mage of the college, but he ended up becoming this magical aura due to his overzealous ambitions. He essentially died, and his soul became fused with the energy from the college area. He's known for his great wisdom, but is kept secret. To me, the Augur was quite intriguing, but I would have actually loved to learn the hard truth about him. I know some things are better kept mysterious, which is why I probably wouldn't want ES6 to be in Blackmarsh, but I feel like the Augur would have benefited as a character if we were actually told more about him. Anyways, the Augur is used as a plot device to point you in the right direction, and you're told you need the Staff of Magnus to avert the disaster the Sigic Order warned of. You tell what the Augur told you to the Archmage, who tells you to tell this to Mirabelle, who then tells you she heard members of the Synod talking to other members of the Synod about a Dwemer ruin called Mazulft. It's a lot of he said, she said, middleman messenger stuff. Anyway, she thinks they may be traveling there to find the staff. So off you go to Mazulft, and you find a dying Synod researcher. He's conveniently dying just in time for you, but just manages to get out some final words, of course. Crystal, gone. Find Paratus in Oculary. Perfect timing, am I right? Anyways, you make your way through the ruins, finding a living Synod member, Paratus, and going to the Oculary. This holds a big Dwemer machine with an unknown purpose. Paratus is quite suspicious of you, understandably. You use fire and frost spells on the Dwemer device to bend light differently, until finally a map is produced. Paratus says it shows that there's something causing interference from your college, something of great power. He's very distressed and increasingly suspicious, quite mentally unstable if you ask me, but then for some reason ends up telling you that the Staff of Magnus is in the Labyrinthian, and that he wanted to use the Oculary to scan the lands for powerful sources of magic for the good of the Empire. I think this is all quite strange, as if he suspected you are up to something he shouldn't help you at all, though perhaps there could have been an option where his rambling on about the Synod actually starts to intrigue you, and then you have the option to suggest joining their ranks and helping them with their goals, perhaps betraying the College of Winterhold. Admittedly, this would be hard to write into the current storyline, so it would probably be a case of rewriting the whole thing from the start to make it work in the first place. Perhaps we could be put in a place where an opportunity to help the Synod seemed very legitimate. Maybe the dodgy nature of the College of Winterhold was made more obvious, and your character believes that the eye must not only be kept out of the wrong hands, but that it is already in the wrong hands altogether. You may want to give it to the Synod because you actually think they would keep it guarded better and use it for good. Regardless of what happens here, you have to go back to the Archmage to tell him what you've learnt, but before you can leave, yet another member of the Sigic Order appears, telling you that you must go back to the College college ASAP, and difficulties lie ahead, but you're on the right path, and I quote, "You will prevail." Well, that really takes the suspense out of it, doesn't it? Look, there's some super crazy dangerous stuff about to happen, and I'm an omniscient fortune teller who can basically do what I want but won't help you, but don't worry, you don't need my help because I already know you're going to prevail. Don't sweat it, you're destined to win. It goes without saying that they definitely should have removed the "you will prevail" part. So you go back to the college and the Archmage and Mirabelle are panicking. The gate to the room holding the Eye of Magnus is blocked by an arcane barrier, and Encano is in there doing something to it. Surprise, surprise, the Thalmor character that was foreshadowed throughout the whole thing to be someone you shouldn't trust was someone you shouldn't trust. It was very predictable. Wouldn't it have actually been really interesting if the Archmage himself betrayed everyone, and Encano was actually a well-intentioned elf, obviously giving his allegiance to the Thalmor, but perhaps providing a more grey perspective on their goals, instead of Bethesda just painting them all as evil. This would make sense when we find out about the past actions of the Archmage in the Labyrinthian. He could have been a much darker character underneath the surface. Maybe he reveals that the college did cause the collapse by accident and he covered it up. Who knows? Anyways, the Archmage tries to stop Encano and a huge explosion happens, killing the Archmage and sending you flying away. Tolfdir is there and tells you Winterhold is under attack by whatever powers killed the Archmage. You go there and slash at magic anomalies, which are just these small blue orb things flying around. After you kill them, you're told the only way to stop Encano is to get the Staff of Magnus, so guess what? The entire time you go adventuring through the ruins of the Labyrinthian, Encano is still in there just messing with the eye, and no one can stop him. The Psijic Order doesn't even try to intervene. Also, apparently before the Archmage died, he gave Mirabelle an item called the Talk of Labyrinthian, which she gives to us. We use it to open a door at the location and go on with the quest. So we go through these ruins, which are pretty cool, and they feature a skeletal dragon, which wasn't explained at all. I made a video called The Two Unexplained Dragons, which you can check out if you're interested in some theories on it. As we venture deep in these ruins, we see ghostly apparitions of past events involving the now deceased Archmage and some students he took to the Labyrinthian in the past. Turns out he led an expedition that saw all the students die due to the dangerous dragon priest named Morokai. Morokai will speak to you as you venture through the ruins towards him, draining your magicka in the process. Also, it really makes Aaron look like a massive dick, because not only did he force two of the mages to stay behind to try to steal Morokai away so he could survive, but added to that snobby comment he made earlier that was like, "Please don't tell me another apprentice has been incinerated." He really should feel shameful saying things like that after what he did, and again, it would have made it all the more fascinating if he did turn out to be a character who fell from grace, becoming shameful, guilty, and eventually unstable and dark. Anyways, you eventually find Morokai, defeat him and take the Staff of Magnus from him, and return to Winterhold, killing more magic anomalies and going into the college. You use the staff to break the barrier and ultimately take down Encano, saving the day and being promoted all the way to Archmage. Now a Psijic monk appears again, congratulating you. He says you met his expectations, which really shouldn't be a surprise because they knew it would happen, and then he says the Order will safeguard the Eye because the world is clearly not ready for the Eye, as Encano just demonstrated. Again, I'm not sure exactly how it makes sense if they knew it was going to happen in the first place. Anyways, after all this, they take the Eye with them and go. You can then complete a Radiant quest that involves killing those blue balls, the magic anomalies, all over Skyrim. So here's the questline in a summary. Cast a spell to get in, block a spell in a lecture, go to a ruin and pick up an amulet, cast a spell at a wall and to meet an apparition from the Psijic Order. Find a giant glowing orb and talk to a librarian about it, go to a fort to retrieve 3 very needed books that happen to have just been taken, and speak to a sentient aura in the basement about it. Consult the college scholars and go to a Dwemer ruin where you'll meet a member of a different mage faction who is super suspicious of you but cooperates and tells you where the Staff of Magnus is anyway. Get told you're going to succeed no matter what by a Psijic monk and go to the college where, surprise, surprise, the suspicious Thalmor member has betrayed you to gain power from the artifact you found at the start. Go get the staff from the Labyrinthian, which I must say was a pretty cool place, and then go kill Encano, get promoted to Archmage, and watch the Psijic Order congratulate you for something they knew would happen and then take the Eye due to reasons they also seem to know would happen. It was a very quick storyline that can be completed in under 3 hours, and I must say I do feel pretty bad for ripping on it so much in this video. Obviously, it's still fun to play, it's still Skyrim, and I did still enjoy it somewhat, but it just doesn't stand up to the Magic faction storylines from previous Elder Scrolls titles, and I definitely wished they added in a rank system. Imagine if by doing the main plot quests and extra side quests, you were granted a new title within the college and given new benefits, making you actually feel like your progress was being recognized. Instead, you just go from noob to Archmage super fast, even though there appear to be wiser and more competent mages in Winterhold who should likely have the title instead. Like I said, I also wish we had the opportunity to join other factions like the Synod. I know it seems far-fetched, but it's just a gripe I have with all the Bethesda faction faction storylines. For example, joining the Silver Hand in the companion storyline would have been beast, pun intended. Now imagine how crazy it could have been to join the Psijic Order. After you prove yourself, this small storyline could have turned out to be the opening to something much larger. Imagine if the Psijic monks said they had something to show you, and then teleported you and the Eye to the Isle of Artyom, their headquarters. Artyom is an island in the Somerset archipelago that the Psijic Order made disappear entirely around the end of the First Era. They brought it back 500 years later and kept where it went a secret. It then vanished again between the time of the Civil War in Skyrim and 100 years prior. The location features orchards and pastures, tranquil lagoons, and misty woodlands. It could be home to some seriously powerful spells that you can only learn to cast if you are a true master, and a whole new plot could unravel, involving events more significant than locating a staff to stop a backstabbing Thalmor from abusing the power of an artifact secured in the college. And that concludes my thoughts on the College of Winterhold storyline and the problems that I had with it, what parts were decent, but mostly what parts didn't fulfill their potential. I hope you liked some of the ideas I went through, and I'd love to hear what ideas you can come up with in the comment section below. It's always good to brainstorm together as a group to really create some sensational concepts. Social media links are in the description. My name's Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.